Hello and welcome to the round so far. Another unbelievable day of football. Kate McCarthy is alongside of me. Kate, that was unbelievable today again.
Oh, I mean, the rounds just keep getting wilder and wilder. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? But yeah, what happened today was just phenomenal.
Here, thanks to Amy. Let's get into it at Adelaide Oval because this was the big story. This hit from Dan Houston on Isaac Rankin. We'll see him, I think, miss the remainder of the season. Kate, how'd you see it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's 4 weeks to go if they play all the way through to the last Saturday in September. And yeah, I don't see Dan Houston playing any more football this season. Just given the severity of it, the outcome of it, concussion for Isaac Rankin. I think the important thing to note, it probably wasn't the contact. It was the contact then with the ground, but doesn't matter. You bump, that's the consequences of it.
You elect to bump and you're in trouble. Doesn't matter if the concussion came when his head hit the ground, which potentially it did, but then it did rattle Adelaide. There's no doubt about that. It got under the skin of the Adelaide Crows players. I thought their discipline was lacking. They gave away cheap free kicks, and we're seeing this here. So Darcy Fogarty, I thought he was undisciplined. I thought Matt Crouch was as well. And from then, it was all Port Adelaide, a 22-point win for them, which is enormous because it solidifies their position in the top four.
Yeah, it certainly does. And obviously, Isaac Rankin, one of the best, if not the best Crow that's out there for that team. Do you think send-off rule has a place in the game?
Oh, I do. This is the perfect example of why a send-off rule works, because Port Adelaide get to keep one of their best players out on the ground and Adelaide lose one of their prime movers. The minute that Rankin went off, he really is their match winner, their best player, their most damaging player, and you lose access to him. So if there was ever a case for a send-off rule, that is exactly that. It's a serious incident. I can't believe the umpire didn't pay a free kick for that one. He'll go straight to the tribunal, and maybe it's even his last game for Port Adelaide.
And the other thing with a send-off rule is that now with the subs, it actually does help the send-off rule a little bit, because you sub them out, they're sent off, they replace the injured player, they replace the player that's been sent off, and the rest of the game continues. So.
The star of the show was Zach Butters. He won the showdown medal. Unbelievable performance. 42 disposals. He had 10 clearances, and this was how he got it done. 20 contested possessions. Katie kicked a late goal, but it was Port Adelaide from stoppage, so they absolutely dominated around the football. I thought their tackling was enormous, and in the end, I just thought they were too physical for Adelaide, and that's what showdowns, as we know, are all about. And Zach Butters led the way. Yeah,
52 clearances to 38 in their favour, Port Adelaide, and that was the icing on the cake there, and him receiving his showdown medal as well. But he was phenomenal. That's the most disposals. That's the new record now in showdowns. He owns that. So
where do you see Port Adelaide? Like, can they win the premiership? They won 7 out of their last 8 after the Port Adelaide fans it was embarrassing. They booed the coach. Now they're there cheering. I can't believe the performance from their fans. But 7 out of their last 8 since that Brisbane. Can they win it?
Yeah, and what we're about to touch on, the other games that have happened so far, it just blows the top 4 wide open. So, yes, they genuinely can. As long as they finish sort of in that top 4, they can get some home finals and go from there.
If you're going to talk a big game, you want to back it up with your on-field performance, and Josh Rochelle didn't. He said prior to this match on radio that Port Adelaide fans didn't have any teeth, and it's not even a clever joke. There's the Port fans giving it to him pre-match with the lolly set of teeth, and it went on and on. He put up an Instagram story and he added fuel to the fire. And this was the performance. If you are going to talk a big game, when the ball is there to be won, you've got to win it. So right now, Josh Rochelle is a laughing stock. He laid 1 tackle. He had 10 disposals. He was ineffective. This was the only moment that he had in the game. And look at this, with the game well and truly in the balance, you don't go over to the fans and do that unless you know the result is in doubt. So look, and there's Ollie Wines after. They would be absolutely laughing at Adelaide. Now, in the prior 3 showdowns, it's been Port Adelaide doing all the talking. They were quiet this week. It was Fogarty, it was Rochelle talking a big game, and they couldn't back it up.
Yeah, well, maybe he needs to start wearing a mouthguard if he doesn't want to put his head over the ball, because maybe he's just trying to protect his own chompers. But yeah, I think if you're going to do stuff like that, I like the theatre.
You like it?
I like the theatre. It brings another element to it, but you've got to, as you said, you've got to back it up.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
If you're going to celebrate like that, you have to win the game. Absolutely, I agree with you, but I do like the theatre of it. If you're winning the game.
Not the first time Josh Rochelle has shirked the issue this year either. Another ugly incident took place with Riley Philthorpe and this tunnelling incident on Lockie Jones. So this isn't a free kick. Once again, some of the umpiring decisions, including the Isaac Rankin Dan Houston hit that wasn't paid. This also not paid. It's almost the most dangerous thing you can do in football. And at a time when we are trying to clamp down on concussion, this was one earlier in the year with Eric Hipwood on Blakey. And at the time I said, that's the most dangerous thing you can do in football currently. I can't understand how we are letting players get away with that.
And the player is completely unprotected. They're not used to, or they're not expecting someone to come, take out their legs, but that, for me, is more dangerous because you have no control over how that player lands and hits the ground. If they hit the ground, yes, head injuries, but neck injuries, C-spine injuries, when they land that way, you have no control over it. And both of those were deliberate. They looked at the player and bumped to try and get that sort of tunnelling action. So minimum free kick, but should be more.
Yeah, we'll see if the MRO has something to say about that during the week. What about the result tonight at Marvel Stadium? For Geelong, firstly, win this guaranteed top four. They had a 33-point lead at half-time, and it was the Saints that stormed home. There's Darcy Wilson. We'll get to him shortly, but their ball movement, Kate, their ability to control the footy with uncontested marks, they got their game going from stoppage, and they kicked over 100 points.
Yeah, well, it's about time they kicked over 100 points, but 13 goals to 5 in the second half for St Kilda, and it really reminded me of the way that they played against Essendon. So Ross Lyon, very, very good coach. He just comes out and knows how to beat teams. So their plan didn't quite work in the first half. It was a dour affair, and he obviously noticed some things that if they were to move the ball a little bit quickly, run and gun, that Geelong's defence wasn't going to be set, and that's exactly what they did, and they ended up putting on a winning score.
And you noted they've been pretty impressive since they lost to Port Adelaide about 8 weeks ago.
Yeah, they certainly have. So they've beaten the Sydney Swans. They lost to Port Adelaide, but only by 2 points, and then they've absolutely smashed teams like Essendon, and then come out and done this to Geelong, who had a top 4 spot there to be taken and weren't able to get the job done despite leading by 33 points at half-time.
Yeah, I think that's the type of footy the Saints fans will be really excited about, led by our Saturday star, which brings us to Darcy Wilson, because first-year player having an enormous impact. Kate, what about his numbers today? 25 touches, 8 score involvements, kicked a couple of goals, and it was the run and carry. And he's so suited to the Saints' game style when they play their footy like this.
He certainly is, and the way that he can run, and he covers the ground so beautifully up and down the middle of the field. He hasn't had a whole lot of opportunity through the midfield, which I think they've opened up in the last couple of rounds, but his finishing in front of goal was fantastic. So a real star and a real performance that can sort of really change the scope of his career now with the Saints.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think that gives them a boost. Okay, we've got Phillippo, we've got Owens, we've now got Wilson. What can we do in the off-season to add to the speed, which is the way that they want to play? And just a point on Callum Wilkie today, he was just huge. 8 intercept marks and 25 touches, which brings us to this. This was maybe the only mistake he's made in the last 6 years. He gets clean bowled. Who covers clangers? Amy does, but just a horrible position to be in, that one.
Just an awful bounce. It's when you sort of go on the front foot and the ball keeps low and you've got nothing to do and it's structuring the pads and you're out.
As I said,
he had no idea what to do with that, did he?
But he was enormous. 80% marks, one of the best on the ground. Once again for the Saints, he's just an unbelievable player. Let's go to the MCG because you were there for this stunning finish, and these are the last quarter moments where Collingwood kicked 4 goals 5 in the last term to win this game of footy. But these are the big moments that led to, unbelievably, Collingwood's season still being alive. Fantastic.
And I think you and I were both doing this game, Kane, and when this goal rolled through from Charlie Cameron, who hadn't had a whole lot going on for most of the evening, was able to slot that. I thought it was over, but this was some fantastic work from the Magpies. But how good is that tackle?
No, it's amazing. I thought their tackling was just enormous. And then here's Schultz again. He kicked that one from the set shot. The gather from Elliott to Schultz, who finished to put them within touch. And then you want to have a look at this in a minute and we'll break this down. But this is Beau McCreary on the outside of the boot. Unbelievable ruck work and a terrific finish which puts the Pies in front. But let's have a close look at that because you want to break it down.
Yeah, I do. And I just want to give Darcy Cameron a whole lot of praise for this. So look at the space. First of all, they've created the Magpies, but your ruckman has to be good enough to get this out here. Shadow Brainey gives him the wrong side of the contest there to Beau McCreary, and it's lights out then. Beau McCreary, we know how quick he is off the mark, but Darcy Cameron, the ability to get that exactly where your forward wants the ball, that's what set it all up.
Yeah, some big goals in this game, but none bigger than this, which leads us to the moment. Nick Dacos was well held in the first term, just 2 touches. He exploded in the second term. There's his numbers in the second quarter. 14 touches, 208 metres gained, score involvements, kicked 2 goals, including that one. I hope we talk about that as one of the goals of the year because he gathered within 3 Brisbane players to bounce when someone's on your hammer he had a look at Joyce and said, "You can't catch me."
Mate, you're wearing a helmet. There's no way you're as quick as I am. I'm just going to tug it under my arm and run away from you. But I think that the story that comes out of this from a Brisbane Lions perspective, away from obviously their inability to sort of get the job done when they should have, was the loss of Jared Berry. So there wasn't a direct tag on Dacos, but he spent a lot of time with him at stoppage. He sort of played that run-with role. And as soon as he was out of the game, they had to send Jasper Fletcher to him to try and lock him down, which didn't work. But how big do you think that Berry loss is for the Lions? We haven't found out the severity yet, but if it is big, what does it mean?
Well, not ideal. I don't think they can win the premiership now. I just thought they needed to finish top two home finals, then see at the MCG on grand final day, and that's what it looked like with about 5 minutes to go in this game. We got the full Joe Daniher package today.
We often get the full Joe Daniher package, but he started really well. He had the first shot of the game that just miscued it a little bit. If you look at those stats, though, you look at that and you say, wow, he's had a very big afternoon, but some of his good is really good, and then we see this other side of Joe that is really bad. So have a look here. He's having a bounce. He's absolutely here. I know the bounce is supposed to come back to him. That's obviously not what he's intended there. He's got one of the best forwards one-on-one in the game.
100%
ahead of him.
And then this is 30 seconds later.
Worse.
Yeah, so I think this is the reason today why Joe Daniher has never been a superstar in our game, because he had a match-up in Frampton, which he would have loved, and he looked like he was going to exploit it. But then we see the great, and we're showing some of that, but then we see that. We see him burning teammates. We see him ready to bury the game for his 5th goal from a direct shot 35 metres out directly in front. He's been a good player, and he's been a good player this year, but he's never been a superstar. And I think today was the exact reason why Joe Daniher will never be a superstar in this game and has never been a superstar in our game.
That torp, from the lazy torp that we saw at the end there, there wasn't 10 seconds to go in the game or anything like that. That was in the 3rd quarter. He got a handball received from Oscar McInerney off a free kick and just took a step and dumped it.
Yeah.
It went nowhere. Even if he got onto it, there was no option. Hit up a lead, do what you want to do when you're a forward. Don't just dump it deep for your teammates.
Yeah, I think that's the story out of Brisbane today, was Joe Daniher's inability to ice the game and be the man that they so desperately have wanted him to be, which takes us to another really important top 4 shaping result today, and it was the Giants getting it done. Once again, here's the last quarter moments. They're now well entrenched inside the top 4 with a real chance to win it, and their forwards had a field day. So there's Hogan once again, he kicked 6. Brendan Cox, I reckon he had 8 goals kicked on him today. Whoever he went to felt like he was getting marked on, and Hogan was enormous. Caleb Sarong was terrific, had the Bedford tag, and in the end, Callum Ward, the veteran, kicked this really important goal. But this was a really good game of footy, a finals-like game, and in the end, the Giants continually get it done in games such as these.
They certainly do, and how about this chase down tackle from the kid in the lid? That was fantastic. He's just stepped back inside there, Luke Jackson,
Big
and then
50
this. Yeah, it's ill-disciplined.
Yeah, ridiculous. And there's a second goal he kicked from a 50-metre penalty directly, but Hogan has just emerged as the best forward in the game, which is just an amazing story.
And on those forwards, we've got Hogan, but the other man I want to highlight from this afternoon is Brent Daniels. And they've found basically a player that's now like for like with Toby Green. I think we talked so much about Toby's season last year, but Brent Daniels, the last few games that he's put together, he was thrown into the midfield against Hawthorn for the last quarter, single-handedly basically won them that game.
Yep.
Then some of these goals today, but his ability to also win clearance, to go up the ground and then just to take the game on. But even better, he laid 13 tackles in the game this afternoon. So he doesn't just run forward, he doesn't just get the clearances and do everything one way, he defends, and he does a very good job at it.
No, he's the most respected small forward in football right now. Hogan's kicked 31 goals in his last 7 games, and Daniels today, 29. You said 13 tackles, 9 clearances with that on-ball exposure, and everything he was touching was leading to scores. So he's almost overshadowing Toby Green, who's been down on form, but that's a great thing for them, because Toby's going to have his moments, but at the moment it's Brent Daniels doing the damage.
And not a great thing for the Purple Haze. They're looking like they're pretty much touch and go now.
You've had the ladder predictor out.
Yeah.
What does it tell you?
Well, it tells me that if I click one way and the other way, then the whole top 8 changes.
But a huge game for them next week against Port Adelaide.
If you're a Freo fan, for the first time in your entire life, when you wake up, you are cheering for West Coast, because if West Coast beat Carlton, it really opens it up for Fremantle. If Carlton win their last 2 games and most of the other results go the way we expect, Freo are out of finals.
Well, which would be another big story in the context of the season. Let's go to Friday night, because it was the same old Essendon. And I want to highlight Ben McCarthy. He's the $1 million another problem right now for Essendon. Some of his handballing and decisions under little pressure, these are simple skill execution that you learn probably in under 12s. Like an under 12 player, a good one would hit that handball, and you could just see all of his lack of confidence, the missed shepherd there. He's getting out-bodied in the marking contest. He just completely lets Amadi run and jump at this football. Now, this is the highest paid key defender in football, someone that the Bombers paid a huge check to get, and whilst he started the season well, his last 6 to 10 weeks have been really poor, and it's a big problem for him because he's on a long-term contract, and at the moment he's making skill errors and being uncompetitive with his defence.
And what do you put it down to? Why do you think we're seeing things like that from Ben Mackay? It looks like he's really hesitant to get the body contact, to take the game on, and he just looks very lacking confidence at the moment.
I just don't think he's ever been a great player. I mean, he's always been a good intercept mark. If the ball has pressure on it and it's kicked up and he can mark the footy, but with ball in hand, he's always been a little bit shaky. And I just don't think he's good enough to be Essendon's number one man, the man that they've paid him a big dollar amount to be that number one man. Now, a bit of controversy with Dyson Heppell retiring this week. What an unbelievable leader, former captain and player and teammate he has been. They opted not to give him a farewell game in Melbourne. Brad Scott was asked about this after the game.
Dyson's been very, very clear that his decision to retire, a big part of it was, he talked to me about when someone has come through and is ready to take his spot and perform, that he would know it was time. We've had discussions for 4 to 6 weeks, but I mean, he is as strong as I am on our seasons. We were still in the contention. We pick our best team, and that's what we did. And that's what everyone would expect us to do.
Yeah, I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. Poor crowd, only 33,000 in the house. There would have been an extra 10,000 probably turn up if he was playing. You mentioned the sub. They could have easily played him as sub, brought him on halfway through the third quarter. The crowd would have erupted and given them a boost, but missed opportunity.
And so would his teammates. Like, he's been a very big part of that club for his whole career. You cannot tell me the effect that he's had on players that he'd be playing alongside running out there on Friday night would not find an extra 5-10%. You know it. I know it as a player. You say that every game's the same. When it's a good mate of yours that's playing their last game and you know it, you find an extra gear, and that could have been the difference in the end.
The package, Jake Stringer remains without a contract. There's only one game left in the home and away season. I'm big on a one-year deal for the package. You want 1 year, keep him motivated, keep him playing on edge and make him earn his position. The last thing you want to be doing is rewarding him with a long-term contract.
I completely agree. I think he's pushing for 2. He obviously wants 2 for that security. I'd give him the 1. Given what's happened this year, they're sort of the same position they were last year, really. There's growth in their list. Yes, we're seeing positives, but they're not playing finals again. Give him another year, see what happens from there. But I think they're going to renege and give him 2.
A tough week for the Melbourne Footy Club, but it didn't show on field. Despite them being undermanned with some players out, including Petrarca, May and Oliver, they completely obliterated Gold Coast. A really disappointing performance from Gold Coast, and it was Jack Viney. He was just enormous. And all the talk about his future, well, this is exactly the reason North Melbourne are trying to get him out of the Melbourne Football Club. He was everywhere today. There's his numbers. He had 39 clearances. He was involved in anything from centre bounce, and not a noted goal kicker, but today he was just that, and that's the reason North Melbourne want to get him.
He basically said, look, all of this stuff that's going on during this week, I'm just going to forget about this and I'm going to go out and put my heart on my sleeve and play the best game that I possibly can, and he was phenomenal. But we've come to expect it from him, and because I think some of the superstars that are in the team, he doesn't normally have numbers like we see or impacts like we see because he doesn't have to. But this game, he was just absolutely phenomenal, and there's one particular effort that I want to highlight out of this game, and it's Jack Viney, the player we've been talking about, and Touk Miller. So Touk Miller coming back, and we know he's a phenomenal runner. And I think, Kane, you and I, it's quite remiss that we're both doing this together because you are Jack Viney and I'm Touk Miller.
Well, you've got to go. You've got to go.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm saying, it's 50-50. If we win this, I look like a hero and I'm out. And you're saying, no, I need to get back here because you're not chasing me. And guess who always gets it right? The one that runs harder,
well, exactly.
Not the guy trying to cheat out the back.
100%. There's the footy gods. They reward you. That was in the last quarter. You've got to dig in. And Touk Miller has had an interrupted season, but he's a big runner, as you said, and Jack Viney completely burnt him off. I actually like their under-23s, Melbourne. Yep. I think there's a group of 7 or 8 that they can build around that have been given experience this year to play. I wouldn't be going for you, Houston, or giving up a first pick to get an experienced player in. I would be perhaps taking just a slight step back, going to the draft and rebuilding the footy club with experience around them and building from there. All right,
what would you do quickly? What would you do with Petrarca then?
I'd keep him.
You'd keep him?
Yeah, keep him. Sort that out.
Sort it out and keep him.
Definitely
Yep.
issues at the footy club, but they need to sort that out and they need to get all on the same page. Let's look at the ladder because you've had the ladder predictor out, as I said. This is how it sits. Port Adelaide guarantee their top 4 position. They've won 7 out of their last 8 with the showdown win. The Giants will get there now. You would think it'll be on the line for Geelong, although they've got an easier run home. Brisbane just can't make the top 4 from here, you wouldn't think. And then we jostle for the last 3 positions in the 8.
Yeah, well, it's still all the way up for grabs, really. We've got one more round and a half to go. The game's tomorrow, and still, I think about 10 teams can make it into the top 8, and no one's really guaranteed of their final position except for the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, let's look at the rest of the round because can West Coast knock off Carlton? Surely they can. You'd expect the Western Bulldogs not to slip on a banana peel and get that done against North Melbourne, albeit their last late games recently haven't gone to plan, and Hawthorn will absolutely destroy Richmond. You've been pretty good tonight, I must say.
Oh, thanks very much. You didn't do too bad yourself.
Just steps up straight in, does not miss a beat. This has been the round so far. All thanks to Amy. We'll see you next week.
For the best and most comprehensive wrap of each round, Access All Areas is the show for you. Unpacking all the action and dissecting the big news from each round. Access All Areas thanks to Crypto.com, Mondays on AFL.com.au and the AFL Live app.